Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Olive Tree. I'm Julia Fisher. My guest today is Jonathan Miles. By profession, he's a journalist, and 15 or so years ago he was working in Jerusalem in that capacity. But one day his life changed forever when he was asked to help a mother with a desperately sick child. That encounter resulted in him starting an organisation called Shevet Achim. I met Jonathan at their offices in Jerusalem recently, and he shared his story.
Nothing I'm doing today is anything I would have planned or chosen for myself, but the Lord confronted us and challenges us situation after situation, and don't we all end up in places we never thought we would be?
If I remember rightly, it all started with a woman bringing a child to you in desperation.
Right, I had come here very focused on God's great dealings and faithfulness with the Jewish people, and we were working with the refugees coming from the former Soviet Union. And a Ukrainian woman came in, not Jewish, not a new immigrant, but she had a dying son on her hands, and they'd come here as the last hope to try to save his life. They said that the doctors believed they could save him, but needed a very large amount of money, and asked if we would help. Wasn't at all the direction, either in terms of working with other peoples or working in medical areas, nothing related to what felt like my ministry was at the time. But I tried to get out of it. I went down to the hospital to find the professor to debunk this story. Because a lot of stories that come along, you know, if you really investigate them, you find out it's not all that it appears. This was all that it appeared. And the professor said, it's true, the boy is dying, he has a few months to live. I think we can save him, but I have to tell you one thing. He could be dying in the doorway of our emergency room, and we will not let him through the door until every dollar has been paid. And a real debt of gratitude to him for speaking the truth as plain as it is in this world, and really confronted me with the truth that this beautiful boy, I would have to go back to him the next day and look into his eyes and say, son, it's true, we do have the ability to save your life here in Jerusalem, but you're not important enough. The words of Jesus about not passing by on the other side of the road, I think really convicted me. Understanding that knowing this boy's situation, knowing what I would do if that were my own child, could I just pretend I hadn't seen or heard? We didn't have liberty, we had no idea how to help this boy, but the Lord can give us a little mustard seed of faith. I went back the next day and said, let's pray, let's share the story, let's see what will happen. Within a month, this coalition came together, all kinds of backgrounds, Jews, Christians, believers, non-believers, the hospital becoming a partner. Around the life of a child, people really come together, and the boy was able to get in, have his treatment, most importantly, know that he's as valuable as anybody else in the eyes of his Creator and in the eyes of people who love God. Maybe that's really what the heart of our work is about in this region, is communicating that message. There's no in or out. In some sense, there's not one chosen people, but there is a people chosen to bring all of us into relationship with God. That's such an important and such a healing message for the people of the region, and that's really the heart behind why for many years now we've been working across borders in Gaza and then in Iraq, bringing children who are being forsaken, being forgotten, being left to die into these great hospitals in Israel, where the doctors here are wonderful partners because they treat them with exactly the same level of care as any Israeli child. If a foreign child is failing, is struggling, these doctors will drop their lives, they'll drop everything. 2 days ago, Dr. Alona, who we work with, was up all night taking care of this little girl from northern Iraq that we brought in. And they saw that she was failing, and they rushed her into her second emergency surgery in 2 days the next morning. And Alona told me a couple days ago, we really do this out of love. And then she laughed nervously because Israelis aren't supposed to talk that way. But she was really speaking the truth. We see a lot of love in the hearts of the doctors we work with. And so we have this small supporting role of encouraging them and helping to make this possible, give them the logistical, a little bit of the financial support, a little bit of the spiritual support that they need in order to keep doing what they're doing.
I love your story, Jonathan, because it started in just such a tiny, tiny way. It was just a mustard seed. And I guess you could have thought that that first child was just a one-off. But actually it was just the start. And you actually spent many years living in Gaza along with your family.
Well, probably the truth is the Lord doesn't show any of us more than the next step, because we'd be too frightened to follow him otherwise. So I certainly had no idea where we would end up. But situation after situation, that first child, a few more people asking for help, a friend going down to Gaza, coming back, and surprising all of us with, if any of us think of the Muslim world or think of places where there are extremist movements, we think, number one, I could never go there, it'd be too dangerous. Number two, those people would hate me. Number three, I wouldn't have anything to say to them. I'm sure that's the way I saw things. But our friend went down and came back and said the people were so glad that anyone had come to see them. They're so isolated. They so much just wanted someone to talk to. And they wanted to talk about spiritual things even. And we went down there after a lot of hesitation and a lot of fear that I had to overcome. And it was all true. A few hours outside of Jerusalem, an unreached people group who had never spoken to a follower of Jesus in their lives, who were so happy that we had come to them. How do you walk away from that?
You've also never got involved in the politics of the region. You've always stuck with your faith and the work in front of you.
Well, that's very important. At the heart of our ministry is a recognition that we as followers of Jesus have been blessed through the people of Israel, have been connected to them in some way, perhaps as Paul writes, us being grafted into this great foundation that upholds us. But first of all, what we're doing is simply obeying Jesus by loving our neighbors and caring about them, about that particular child, that particular family, without any other agenda. If we had said, let's go and do something like this, perhaps because it will make Israel look good, our work would be empty. It'd be a clanging cymbal, and people would sense that about us. So this isn't about us. This is about propaganda. This is about apologetics or disputation. In the same way, and this is a subtle point, but it's an important one for us as believers, if we had undertaken this work saying, how are we going to evangelize the Middle East? Well, let's go and do some medical work, and people would know that too. They would sense, they would feel, this isn't about me and my desperate situation and my child. They want something. It's hard to understand that point because the good news is good news, but we need to deal with each person we meet in the region in a total atmosphere of freedom, loving unconditionally as the Father has loved us. Whether a family ever connects with the reason we're here or doesn't connect, doesn't matter. We love that kid. We want to see him treated the same way we would want our own kid treated. And when there's no agenda, everybody relaxes, the tension level goes down, and what's in our hearts does come out, and God is glorified.
So basically what you're doing is you're bringing Muslim children, because by and large they are all from Islamic backgrounds, from Gaza, from other Arab nations surrounding Israel, many now coming from northern Iraq, as you say. You're bringing them into Israel. You have good relationships with a number of Israeli hospitals now. You've had those for a long time. And these children are having major heart surgery and going back well. They're going to live. What sort of an impact, I know you're speaking generally, but what sort of an impact does that have on the family and on their community?
I think the impact is huge. Number one, you're taking people out of situations where they have never been treated as valuable or important. They've always felt undesired, as if they had to fight for their survival. To encounter a situation where without any struggling, without any finances, without any connections, they're able to be as embraced and affirmed and valued. It's a tremendous healing message, particularly if you realize that a whole lot of the pain in this region, I believe, is this feeling of who's in and who's out, who's chosen, who's not, who's accepted, who's rejected. There's a lot of rejection and alienation, and so that impact is huge. And the very first child who came from Iraq, the doctors fought for her life for a month, and the child died. And the family took her little body, and they went back home to Iraq. And, you might think, boy, that's the end of bringing Iraqi kids. But they went back and told everyone, the doctors cared for us. You should have seen the way they fought for our little girl. 10 families immediately saying, won't you take us there as well? People want to be cared for, and they want to be valued. I think they are meeting something here that they've never really seen lived out before. And often Jerusalem is a crossroads of the world, and they're meeting people and hearing about things and seeing things that they've only heard very faint echoes of. They're going to some of the biblical sites. They're meeting believers. They're praying with us, going to worship with us. All that has an impact, sometimes a very personal impact on the families who are with us and the relationships that form our lasting ones. And actually, we're really seeing hearts and lives changed.
You called your organization Shevet Achim. What does that mean?
Shevet Achim is from Psalm 133. That's the Hebrew words from the first verse, how good and pleasant when brothers live together in unity. It's a popular Hebrew folk song, so as soon as you say those words, Shevet Achim, that whole idea full-blown comes to mind. Brothers living together, and what a blessing, what an anointing there can be. And the psalm ends that's where the Lord commands the blessing, even life forevermore. And so our message is, like, who is my neighbor? Jesus said, have a broad definition of who your neighbor is. Who is my brother? A broad definition of who are these brothers who should live in unity. And at least it encompasses all the children of Abraham, the Arab and the Jew, the Muslim, and even us as Christians, if we can, by faith, believe that we are spiritually children of Abraham.
Jonathan Miles, the founder of Shevet Achim, and you're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. Maybe, having heard Jonathan's story, you'd like to help. There are two ways you can do this. One is to offer your time as a volunteer, and the second is to give. And you can do this through the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, a small charity based in the UK that supports Jewish and Arab Christians. For more information, articles and books, please visit our website, www.olivetreefund.org, where you can also leave a donation. If you'd like to receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please either email inquiries@olivetreefund.org or write to me, Julia Fisher, at the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, PO Box 850, Horsham, RH12 9GA in the UK. Join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.